Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just DCTV and the Arrowverse as a whole. And we got a bit of a ranking video coming. This might be the last ranking video I have. I've been holding off on it for a while. I've had like this written down and stuff. I just haven't felt the need to record and upload it. So this is the time that I feel that I will record it, and who knows when I will upload it. That's for for us to wait and find out. But I have to, just making sure I've got my memory correct. We are ranking all the Arrowverse crossovers. Now, some of these you might be like, well, hold on, is that really an Arrowverse crossover? I think it's anything which I guess is seen as a crossover that's going to be ranking. So I have 8. There's 8 here. Now, effectively, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Six official crossovers, but I've added 2 in that one was called a crossover, and then the other one was like a non-thing. The one thing I will say, I am not including the original Supergirl Flash crossover, because technically to me that didn't happen in the Arrowverse. It happened while Supergirl wasn't within the Arrowverse, if that makes sense. So I haven't included that. If I did, it'd probably just be in last spot anyway, just because I thought it was a fun crossover, but it's, I think, clearly the weakest. But yeah, so if I had to rank it to be a last spot anyway, it would be number 9. So we'll just include it. It's in number 9 right there. So number 9, Supergirl Flash original crossover when Supergirl was still on CBS. There we go. There's the first option. But of course, let me know in the comment section down below your various rankings. How would you rank, I guess, the 9 if you include the Supergirl Flash original crossover? How would you rank them from worst to best? Always curious to read what you guys are thinking. And also, if you have any opinions on my rankings, you might be like, hold on, you idiot. Why is that there? What'd you do there? I know, let me know. If you guys have enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. It takes 2 seconds. And yeah, let's get into it. So of course, we're going to rank them from worst to best. So number 8 will be what I think is in 8th spot. Number 1 will what I think is the best and is in 1st spot. Pretty simple. Let's get into it. So at number 8, in last spot, technically, I guess if we're not including that original Flash Supergirl crossover, is the original crossover, and that is Flash versus Arrow back from season 1 of The Flash and season 3 of Arrow. Now, the reason it's in last spot is that it's a very, like, they were dipping their toes, if you want to put it. They were dipping maybe their pinky toe into the water just to see what was happening. It's 2 episodes, but it's really just 2 singular episodes. It's not really a combined storyline. There's like some little, crossovers and everything like there in regards to like linking the episodes. But it's, to me, just feel like 2 singular episodes. You could watch this episode 1 week before and then randomly watch the next one, and they just feel singular, while all the other crossovers really feel like you lead like they're like a movie. They're just movies split into 3, 4 or 5 episodes or whatever it is. So it's a decent thing. It was them dipping their toe in it. It was really fun to see these characters interact for the first time, but it's very much an entry point. They were just seeing how it works, then they would develop it further, and we saw what it grew into as we got into later seasons after this. So it's still a fun thing to watch for the first thing, but it's also like very just, I don't want to say basic, but like just them starting off. And number 7, it might be surprising that I did not put this in last place, because a lot of people don't like it, and people for some reason think I hate this episode, and that's Duet, otherwise entitled or otherwise known as the Supergirl Flash musical crossover. Now, I think this episode on its own is fun as hell. I like musicals. I like watching musicals. I think they're fun. And this one is a pretty well done thing, especially when you consider like the time and stuff like that it would have taken to do. And like this probably would have been more annoying to do than like something like those 3 or 4 episode crossovers, just because you got to involve the music, the choreography, everything like that. Probably was a pain in the ass to do just for one singular episode. You didn't even get an episode of Supergirl to do it. You just got an episode of Flash to do this. So it probably would have been a pain in the ass to do. And I think they did a really damn good job with it. So I like the episode for what it is. Also, it's just 1 episode, so it's hard to really put it any higher, just because it is like 1 singular episode. So the content there is hard to beat some of those other crossovers, which have 3, 4, 5 episodes and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's fun. I think it works in regards to the characters they chose and everything like that. And yeah, I'm happy putting it at 7. At number 6, I have Heroes Join Forces. Now, this was like a weird sort of like what would you call it? Like suffix for the crossover, because like no one really refers to it as Heroes Join Forces, but this one is the one that was like essentially the Legends of Tomorrow setup, where you had Vandal Savage, Hawkgirl, Hawkman, all them show up. So that's what this crossover is. This one, once again, was them finding their feet. This is the second crossover they did following the Flash vs. Arrow. As I said, it was sort of setting up Legend of Tomorrow essentially through the crossover, at least with the villain side, and then Hawkman and Hawkgirl. I thought this was still a fun crossover to have. It was really the one where it fully felt like you were watching almost like a movie split into parts, and it really helped develop what we got with like later crossovers as well. I think if they didn't do this one, those other crossovers, like in regards to like this format that they chose, and like how they structured everything, it might have felt a bit weird. And also, this was the one where like when you watched the episode of Flash, it didn't feel like you're watching an episode of Flash, or if you're watching the episode, it felt like an episode of Arrow. They just felt like they were their crossovers, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think they did a really good job with this one, and yeah, big fan of it. I don't want to say big fan of it, but I'm a fan of what they did with it, which then led on to other stuff. And I still think it's higher than Flash vs. Arrow and Duet, just because of what they achieved with it. And number 5, people might argue against this and be like, well, hold on, is that even a crossover? I consider it a crossover, so it's on my list. And that's Armageddon, which of course was the event that started up the Flash season 8, I think it was. Now, I consider this a crossover because we had characters from other shows that were still on at the time crossing over. Now, I think Supergirl had finished at this point, but of course we had like Alex Danvers from Supergirl come over. We had Brandon Routh, or Ray Palmer, might I say, aka the Atom, come over. Batwoman was in it. We had Ryan Choi. There was a bunch of different characters crossing over. So I consider it a crossover. And they sort of said it was a crossover. When it was first announced, it was entitled a crossover. I think when it was actually coming out, they just sort of said it was like an event, without putting the crossover there, because you weren't getting an episode of Legends of Tomorrow or Batwoman and stuff. They were just appearing on the show. But I still consider it a crossover, at least in regards to this list. This, I think, five episodes, at least 4 of the 5 episodes, I think are awesome. I think they're like minimum 8.5. One of them is a 10 out of 10, which is episode 2, I think it was. And even like, I think like the third, I think it's episode 4 is like really approaching like almost like perfect from beginning to end. So this is one of my favorite ones. It loses points because it's not a traditional crossover. It might have been higher if it was literally spread over the other shows they were on at the time, but then again, it might not have been as good. And it was also very Flash centric, so it sort of had to be at the beginning of the, like, it had to be a Flash 5 episode event rather than this crossover event over different shows and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this one. I love Armageddon. I had my doubts going into it. I was like, oh, why are they doing this? Is this like a bit of a gimmick? Because it was also coming out of the COVID times and they couldn't do like a proper crossover. So I was like, is this a bit of a gimmick? But it sort of like, it outdid my expectations by quite a bit. And I was very, very happy with what we got. And number 4, just missing out on the top 3, just by 1 spot, is Elseworlds. Now, Elseworlds is fun. I think it's fun. I think the concept is fun. But it also, if you're being completely goddamn honest, it's purely Crisis setup. It's purely Crisis and Infinite Earth setup. I remember when we got it. I remember when it was coming out. Like, people saw that the Monitor was going to be in it. And what was the other thing that was in it? There was something else in it that was like teasing Crisis as well. Like in regards to the advertising. Not actually when we're watching it. But in the advertising. And people were like, is this just setting up Crisis, or is this them doing something here because they can't do Crisis? People were wondering what they were doing here specifically, outside of just the Elseworlds factor, where you have like Barry and Oliver like swap lives, I guess. It's still a bit confusing how you would term that. Yeah, they swapped lives. Yeah, because Oliver became Barry and Barry became Oliver, but they were still, yeah, anyway, whichever way you want to put it. I think I'm making it harder to understand than it is. But you know, it was purely Crisis setup, but it's still a fun as hell thing to watch. Like, the Supergirl aspect of it is a bit weird when they come into it, I guess, because Supergirl's in it, but obviously not part of, like, any sort of swap thing. But that's before she was a part of, you know, she was still on Earth 38 and stuff like that. So there was still, like, yeah, like that aspect there. So they couldn't really include her in the body swap things and stuff like that. I wonder who she would have swapped with. Maybe they would have done, like, I don't want to use the term, well, I guess I can use it, like, 3-way. But then again, that might have been weird. Yeah, that would have been sort of weird. So probably better doing it the way they did it. But yeah, I thought this was fun. Obviously, I think maybe like the final episode's a bit weaker, I think, than the other ones. But of course, you got like the Batwoman stuff. We got to visit Gotham City for the first time in the Arrowverse. in this crossover as well, and it really opened the doors there. So that was really fun as well. So yeah, it's not better than the top 3, but I think it's still a really solid crossover that was fun to watch. And number 3 is Invasion. Now this was like the first one, like the first proper one where it felt like, okay, you could cut this together and it could be a movie as well. Like this was like when it was having those like bigger vibes. And I think this is the crossover where everyone went like, wow, this is like pretty big. And I think they did a lot of advertising as well for this crossover as well, this Invasion one, because you had Supergirl, like the show. I know the Supergirl episode of this crossover is like really not an episode, but still technically they included it. But also it's the first crossover that Supergirl's a part of, just as a character. So you have Supergirl, Legend of Tomorrow, The Flash, and Arrow. Obviously it's really just 3 proper episodes, but they're big episodes, and like the Dominators and everything. This is when like it felt like when you were watching it, there was a bit of an increase in the production value for the crossovers and stuff like that. It almost felt like they were making a movie, and yeah, I think it worked really, really well. And I think it made everyone buy into the crossovers and be looking forward to what they did next. So I think this was a success. I've actually gone back and watched this. I think this is one of the ones where you can just buy it. I think legally they can't make it into like a long movie because they'd have to like re-edit it and stuff like that. But you can buy, I think like this one, and I think like a few of the other ones you can buy just as the crossover on like DVD and Blu-ray, or even just buy it on like iTunes and Google Store, Google Play, or whatever it's called, just as they are. So I think this might have been the first one you could do that. So yeah, I think Invasion's fun as hell, and yeah, really set a precedent, and they tried to beat it with what they did next, and they pretty much did, except for Elseworlds, because Elseworlds came out after. But they, with all the other crossovers they did afterwards, after this one, they pretty much beat it. And at number 2, in second spot, is the last proper big crossover we got, and that's Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, I know a lot of people love to hate on this one. I really don't understand why. I thought people were like, I don't know, because going into it, I remember saying like, you know, I'm not expecting like this ridiculous story, because Crisis on Infinite Earths isn't this like ridiculous story. Like, it's essentially spring cleaning the crossover, even in the comics, and now obviously they added a story around it, but it's not this like ridiculously deep story. Like, it's just, you know, it's just like this death and destruction essentially. So one of the big aspects we were looking at is just how can the CW have fun with it, and it was almost like a celebration of what it had done in the Arrowverse, because Arrow was ending and stuff like that, and I think they knew like Supergirl probably gonna have like another season or 2. So it was a celebration around that, as well as sort of the other DCTV shows beforehand elsewhere and stuff, whether they were on at the time or they were from like the 90s or even before, and even the movies and stuff like that. So I think they did a fantastic job with Crisis on Infinite Earths. I do wish the final part was a bit better. Like, it's very similar to Elseworlds. Was Elseworlds? Yeah, Elseworlds was the one I mentioned, and even Armageddon, where the final part almost feels like half an episode, and it's just sort of tacked on, almost like an epilogue of sorts. So I think they could have made the final part a bit better. But outside of that, I really, really enjoy Crisis on Infinite Earths. I love the build-up to it. The build-up to it is the favorite thing, like in regards to like everyone getting excited to watching it, hearing all the news, all the announcements and stuff, whether it was set photos or just general people talking about it. It was my favorite thing ever in the Arrowverse. Ever to come from DC was the build-up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was the most fun I ever had on YouTube, making videos, talking to people, streaming, everything like that, just talking to you know people that were just looking forward to watching it, whether it was other YouTubers and stuff like that, or just, you know, people that watch the videos, or people online and stuff like that. It was just fun as hell. And even people that didn't really like, maybe hadn't really watched any of the shows, or maybe just watched Flash and maybe stopped after a season or 2, or vice versa with Arrow or whatever it is, they were looking forward to it. It was like this massive thing, and it was so fun. So Crisis on Infinite Earths earns a bit more points from that, but it still would have been second even if without that. But yeah, second spot. So much fun. And at number 1, I think it's pretty obvious. This is just like a fantastic crossover from beginning to end. And this was 5 episodes. Crisis was 5 episodes. Infinite Earths was 5 episodes. Was it 5 episodes? It was 5 episodes. Batwoman, Arrow, Flash, Legends, Supergirl. Yeah, it was 5 episodes. Okay, just was losing my mind there. Hold on. I thought Infinite Earths was 5 episodes as well. But anyway, Earth X, Crisis on Earth X. Wait, was this 5 episodes? This was 4. Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends. Okay, so Earth X was 4 episodes. This, I think, from beginning to end, from episode 1, the beginning of episode 1 up to the end of episode 4, they nailed it. They nailed it. Of course, like episode 1 is a lot of build up and stuff like that, but it's almost like just, you know, the characters hanging out essentially, you know, as well. Now, this was, I think from memory, this crossover like had some people that couldn't do it, which was a bit unfortunate, but they did with what they had in regards to the characters they could use. And yeah, it just like I think like the I think like the scope of it was very big as well. Like when you watch the first episode, you think it's going to be small, and then all of a sudden you're on Earth X, and there's like weird camp and all these different multiverse versions of characters. And I just thought it was really, really fun. And obviously this set a standard where, of course, that maybe led to like Crisis and Infinite Earths having like an unfair viewpoint from people. It was like, well, it has to beat Earth X. But Earth X was like fantastic from beginning to end, so it was always going to be hard to beat Earth X. And I think, in my opinion, Infinite Earths came somewhat close, not this close, but maybe like that close or something like that. So yeah, Crisis and Earth X, I think, just with all the different characters and all the different, you know, both current and the ones we actually meet in the crossover and stuff, I think they did a good job. The story, of course, is great, the fight scenes and everything like that. Just even just the overall character interactions. I think this is like the perfect crossover. It's not only the Arrowverse, but even just in general, I think like they just nailed it from beginning to end. And of course, they had all the lead up from the previous years, as I was saying before in this video, how like Invasion or Heroes Join Forces and stuff like that really prepared them for something like this. But I think all that build up showed perfectly in Earth X, and you know just the achievement there. So easy number 1 in my opinion, and I'm pretty happy with my list. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you'd be awesome, you could drop a like and a show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your rankings from worst to best, or you can just let me know your top 3, maybe top 3 if you don't want to write all of them down, because you might not have watched them all. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below what you think there, and also your opinions on my rankings. Do you disagree with Duet not being last? I don't know, you might be angry about that. Let me know. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.